Advisory Committee to order. My name is Joe Ford. I'm the chair of the CCAC. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Take the time out of your schedules and the rainy Wednesday evening to join us for an important community meeting. We will begin, as we traditionally do in these meetings, with introductions. So we always appreciate hearing who you are and sort of what part of Crozet you're from. So I'm Joe Ford, the chair of the committee, and I'm from Highlands.
Jim Duncan, Crozet Village.
Michael Monaco, Emerson Commons.
Costa Suburbs, 250.
Mark McKay, Westall.
Mike Kunkel, Joy Farm.
Ken Thacker, St. George Avenue.
Library Planning Commission, Whitehall.
Mallory DeCoster, Western Ridge. Lee Pesh, Human Springs.
Kevin McCollum, I'm a planner with the Albemarle County Community Development.
I'm Allison Erdl. I'm the community connector, one of the liaisons for this group, or the liaison for this group for now, and I live in the city.
Rebecca Ragsdale, I'm planning manager of community development. I'm part of the staff lineup here.
And I'm Serena Guria. I'm the public engagement coordinator with Albemarle County, so on staff as well.
I would like to get our public attendees to just introduce themselves too, so that we know who all's here. We can start right here, Terry.
I'm Terry Miyamoto. I'm here for the Crozet Trails crew, and I live in Ireland.
Mike McCormick, live on Bishop Gate.
David Bell, Bishop Gate, Old Trail. Houston Meggs, Bishop Gate, Old Trail.
Sharon Grest, West Hall Townhouse.
Jerry Gress, married Sharon.
Bob McIntyre, Glenwood.
Allison Wood, live in Crozet Mobile Home Community. Jill Bryant, Mobile Home Community.
Marilyn Wood, mobile home community. Mary McCauley, mobile home community.
Scott McCauley, Mobile Home Community.
Heather World, member.
I'm Kelsey Chalana, here presenting the local community projects.
Eric Schmitz, Western Ridge.
Kevin Higgins, Greenwood.
Bill Dickey, Old Trail.
Jill Shiplett, Crozet Mobile Home.
And I'm also here as the Crozet Gazette, but my reporter that was going to do this part for me is couldn't come tonight, so I'm double dutying.
Well, thank you, Alan. Thank you, as always, to the Crozet Gazette for continuing to film these. This is an invaluable service to record these meetings and to upload them, make them available, so everybody can see exactly what's going on. It's a tremendous service, and thank you, Alan, for
Thanks.
double duty tonight. Very briefly, our agenda review. We'll see, we're going to get our introductions. We'll hear a little bit more about our new staff liaison. So I guess I'll go ahead and take our first chance to welcome our new staff liaison, Allison Raybould. We're excited. We'll talk a little bit in just a few minutes when we get to announcements and updates. I'll share a little bit, and Allison will talk a little bit about sort of what her role is and how we'll be working together going forward with the committee. As you can see in the agenda, we will cover a little bit about what Allison and I have been working on. Our main agenda item this evening is our community meeting for the Park Road Manufactured Home Park. We have Kevin McCollum and Rebecca Ragsdale from the county, and Kelsey is here, the president on that. Then we'll wrap up with a little bit of committee business. A couple of items that came up when I was talking with Allison about some ways that maybe some members of the committee can help just take care of a little sort of low-hanging fruits and internal business, make our website be a little more efficient and complete, and a little better job that we can do on following up with implementation and that's more accountability and projects that we work on. And then we'll wrap up, if we have time, with maybe continuing our conversation about if, when, and how we might want to have virtual meetings in the future. I'm actually totally fine if we end up having a lot of conversation. If we don't get to that tonight, it's not critical. It's just it was intended to be just kind of a high-level conversation. So I'm okay if we don't end up actually using all the time and getting practice. We can always kick that to next meeting. So with that, I guess we'll move into our approving meeting minutes. We do have a quorum here. Thank you, everybody, for being here. So at this point, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Are there any corrections or additions? Thank you, Michael. Very good job as always.
I'll motion to approve.
Passes. Second. Seconded. Any discussion, any corrections or additions, amendments to the meeting minutes? All right, seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of approving the meeting minutes, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, meeting minutes are approved. Announcements. So very briefly, again, I want to welcome Allison Rabel. It's very exciting. And Serena, thanks for being back with us. Just want to update you all. Allison and I had a really productive hour and 15 minutes. We talked for a while last week. Just to get to know each other a little better and to talk a little bit about the operations committee going forward, how the staff role is going to be operating and how it will help us. And so one of the things I just want to talk kind of high level about the calendar. Allison and I talked about the idea, this is something that we talked about as a committee, and the operations, what was working well, what wasn't. A lot of people expressed that they liked the kind of calendar, the idea of sort of planning out our meetings kind of in advance so that we knew what was coming down the pipe. Especially, I know Valerie was talking about, we talked about accountability and implementation and having those opportunities for regular check-ins, whether it's with, parks or transportation, Kevin McCarran, whatever. And so, you talk about Allison. I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, Allison, I'm not sure that the county is necessarily going to go with the same model as last year, where we plan out the whole year like we did last year. But what we sort of talked about, and I'll let you talk more about the specific meetings, Allison, and kind of how you envision this going. But I think our goal is to kind of do it kind of on a quarterly basis. They should kind of plan 3 months out at a time so that you all know what our topics will be, we know, and it gives the county a chance to kind of know what's coming. So, Allison, can you tell me some of the ideas, sort of how the meetings are going to operate with the presentations, all that, because I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, we had talked a little bit, and we're not sure this is totally solid yet, but a lot of times, and what had happened last year, that you guys seem to like, and all the CACs are a little different in their feelings about the year planned out like last year was, but the idea of having kind of a big topic and having those staff members go and talk to all the CACs, possibly to make it more accessible to everybody, doing maybe a general presentation of, for example, transportation. So one of the transportation planners would kind of have their slideshow, maybe do an audio recording that would be posted on the county's YouTube page of the overall transportation updates for the county at large. And then when they came here, it would be anticipated that people would have watched it before coming to the meeting, and if not, there'd be like a little bit of an informational part at the beginning. But then it would really be focused on the Crozet area for the in-person part, and then there'd be additional time for discussion. So instead of it being you all sitting here for 30 minutes and having maybe 10 or 15 minutes for discussion, hopefully it could be more of a 15-minute presentation and a longer time for discussion or question and answer portion. So for a variety of topics, kind of what you guys are interested in. I know a lot of people are interested in, or a lot of groups are interested in similar overall topics. I think like transportation is always kind of a big one every year that people want updates. There's lots of projects going on and projects coming up in the future and kind of where those stand and everything. So happy to hear, I know you guys kind of talked about this at the November meeting to some extent, and I've watched that. But happy to hear topics that you all are interested in, ideas. We're thinking maybe February for most of the CACs, or maybe even March, depending on they have different community meetings, but doing an update on the comprehensive plan update, AC 44, for all the different CACs would kind of be this initial topic. And so I think there's a lot of interest in that, and yeah, that would be one example, and that was kind of the main idea, and then potentially looking out quarterly and kind of saving room for community meetings, since it's not always known exactly how quickly those will come before CACs for that requirement. So leaving that little wiggle room in there for those opportunities as well.
Thank you, Allison. Yeah, I think that the idea that they've shared about kind of having an overall presentation that we can view ahead of time, that people can watch, and then really focus on the Crozet specific stuff is great. I think we've all had the experience where we get some of these regular updates, and we spend 30 minutes talking about what's going on in pan tops and all this, and we get down, we don't have enough time to talk about it. We really focusing on what's going on here, what's going on. So I think that's a really great development. And one thing we've talked about in terms of that update, the quarterly update, is trying to really peg those meetings to when things are most relevant. So I know like one idea of the comprehensive plan discussions, if there's some upcoming surveys and they're kind of a transitioning to the next phase of the comprehensive plan. So it seems like a logical time to stop and kind of take stock of where that is and also have an opportunity for us to give some feedback. Other things like budgeting cycles, things like that. Might be nice to do that. In terms of meetings also, you'll notice that I've sort of, based on our conversations in the last couple months about internal committee operations, I'm trying to think a little more strategically about what we might do at committee meetings. You'll notice there's a new agenda item number 4. It's called community concerns. One thing that a lot of us I think we have seen is that sometimes we have people who come to meetings and often we'll get through all our meetings, we get to the end, there's an announcement session or update, and then people from the community will have a concern or something that's going on, but it gets sort of crammed into those last 2.5 minutes while we're trying to put the chairs in. And so, we've always, I think we've been pretty welcoming. We've encouraged people to bring their ideas, especially since, Ann is usually here. We've got, Lonnie, we have, direct elected representatives or appointed representatives here. We've never really had a formal process for channeling that feedback. And I know that there are some other CACs that do that actually have a session. So what I'm hoping to do here is basically have a dedicated slot that's kind of analogous to the matters from the public at like board of supervisors. So if there aren't Crozet specific issues, then we could have just a couple of minutes and we could present on that. You'll notice that the order, we have announcements and updates at number 3 and then community concerns. So part of my hope is that, for example, if Ann is here, if we hear a community concern, the hope would be by next month, it becomes an update, right? So Ann has, here's how we addressed it, or here's what's going on with that thing, and then we kind of move to the next concern. So hopefully just having kind of like a workflow, like concern comes up, we hear it, gets addressed, and then the next meeting, there's an update or announcement. And so we just kind of roll through there. So this is, I'm hoping that it's sort of a pilot project. We'll see how it goes. I think it could have the potential to spiral out of control, but I'm cautiously
What's your
optimistic.
time on that?
What's that?
What's your set time?
No, that's a good question. No, I think that's a good one. No, I think we, it's something that we could consider as a group if we want to like change like a rule of procedure. I mean, we can change our rules of procedure. We could actually adopt a formal like rule of procedure that says, look, matters from the public get 2 minutes or whatever. I think we can go down the road if we need it. Hopefully we won't need it, but I think that's a great point. It's just that we've always sort of allowed people to do that on an ad hoc basis, right? And people have often taken advantage of that, and I think just channeling this will just make it a little more efficient. All right. Oh, and the other thing I'll just say is one thing I'd like to also continue, based on the feedback we had in November and October talking about committee operations. In addition to the community meetings that we have, development meetings, and the staff updates, I think, if I heard right from the committee, is that one of the really important functions that we serve as committee is just providing people with information and what's going on, and we're a sort of community forum. And historically, I think the committee, when Allie was running things, we did a lot of community updates from groups, civic organizations, and I think actually that might be a good thing to get back to, a little bit. So we have a slot for, we might have a 40-minute update from Kevin McDermott, but before that we have a 10-minute update from the Peachtree League or from, the Trails Group. Terry did a great job speaking of the Trails Group, or other civic groups, or the Rescue Squad, or the fire department, whatever's going on out here. I think these civic presentations are actually really parks, birthday parks. What's going on here? I think that might be a nice.
CCAC.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, sure. These aren't like the main item. These would be 10 or 15-minute presentations where people just give us a quick update about what's going on. So I hope to weave that into the kind of monthly agendas too. All right. With that, we'll move into community concerns, our brand new number 4 item. If there are concerns, and by the way, the community concerns aren't just, they could be from the public, they could be from the committee too, right? There obviously could be things that come up. Unfortunately, Supervisor Malik is not able to join us tonight. This is the one time in the entire year where the Board of Supervisors actually has a meeting on this night because they're starting up for the 2023 calendar year. She won't be here, but she can obviously watch the video, and we have minutes. So if there are concerns from the community or from the committee on specific items, Crozet-focused items, not related to the Park Road manufacturer, we'll cover that in a little bit. But if there's other things that we have or the public has, I think we have a few minutes to hear those and mark those.
So thank you,
Yeah.
thank you for item 4, but is it possible to update the link in 5 to where these people live, community mobile home, Crozet mobile home community? I don't think the link name resonates with the people that
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, that was the name that's on the presentation. Sorry,
Okay.
that's,
And that's the name on the county website.
yes.
You go looking for it, so that's why it's there.
Oh, I see. So you're saying that no longer is an accurate name given the sale? Is that the problem? Because of the sale of the property or the,
I believe it's been the name for 4 years.
oh, I see. Oh, I see, it's just they,
It just doesn't resonate
I see.
with the people.
Yeah, I can help address that. I mean, so we refer to mobile home communities at the county level as manufactured home parks. So when the application came in, it was titled manufactured home park. We could certainly change that title.
It'd be helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah, thanks.
that sounds like a good recommendation.
Thank you.
That's good. Hey, there we go. What we're doing. Yeah, Tim, please.
I don't know if this is the appropriate body for this, but I'm from Bishopgate, and at the intersection of Bishopgate and Old Trail, there's a section of the road which is used as a parking lot for parents picking up their children who walk down from the schools. And at certain times of day creates an issue for egress and going and egress. And I don't know whether that's a police concern, whether it's a planning concern, but it's a safety concern that's going to result in something at some point. And there also are a large number of children that cross that road at that point, and there's no crossing walk, there's no indication that there are children walking across there's no stripes on the road. There's nothing to slow traffic down. And it's become an issue with many of the parents in the community and the safety of their children.
You said that's at Bishopgate and Old Trail.
It's at Bishopgate, where Bishopgate and Old Trail meet. And as you leave Bishopgate on the right-hand side, there are, at certain times of day, there are a large number of cars parked there where parents are queuing to pick up their children who are walking down from the elementary or the middle school. The only problem is the road really isn't designed to have a parking lane. It's too narrow. There are trucks, construction vehicles that go in and out. And if you have a car exiting, they're in the lane, trucks coming in or cars coming in, people trying to turn in from Old Trail can't turn. It's problematic. And as Bishopgate is completed, it probably will only get worse. And a lot of those cars are for parents who don't live on Bishopgate. They live in other parts of the community. So they're trying to short circuit the picking up of their children at the school location.
It's a mess. The whole thing with the kids, it's either they ride the bus or they're taking to school. And some of these parents are not taking their kids to school, well, they are. But certain days, like when it's raining or it's bad weather or it's 2-hour delay, they take all their kids to school. It's a disaster. Like my one son, he is in a wheelchair. So it is a disaster when this happens. Like when I take my 2 little ones to the elementary school down here, it's a disaster trying to just get them on the bus. I try to keep them on the buses because it's either you do or you don't. And if something happens to my car, I don't have any other help. So that's why I do that. But it literally in the mornings, it takes me forever just to get to his bus. Like just to get in and out of those parking lots. They have an awesome system to keep up with the kids. But it is a disaster because everybody is taking their kids to school because there's not enough bus drivers. That is the big issue, and that's why there's parents everywhere trying to pick their kids up. It doesn't matter what school they're in, just different times of the day, it's a disaster. They added on to the school down here. It's not enough school for all these kids. That's a big, big concern. Like, they had gone to the school down here, half of those kids went to the other school at Brownsville. It's so many kids, you can barely get in or out of the parking lot. And God help you, trying to back into a parking space to try to walk your kids down there, you can't get out. It's a disaster. So, I don't know what that has to do with everything, but just adding more people to it is gonna cause even more of a ruckus.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, thank you. And the point about Bishop Gate, we'll pass that along to Supervisor Malik. Yeah, I don't know exactly if that's correct, if that's the police, if that's a transportation issue, I'm not sure exactly the answer to that, but we can pass that along. Yeah, Mike?
Yeah, I've noticed too, I wonder if there's a light timing issue as well on 250 when schools are coming in and out, and I wonder if they could make an adjustment to that light timing, because a lot of that backup.
Absolutely.
Like from Western? Yes, and my oldest is Western, it's a disaster. Like, you'll be waiting forever. I have to go around News Mill just to get out of Crozet. Yeah.
All right, with that, we need to move on to our next main item, just give a presentation on the community meeting. So we'll start with Kevin, Rebecca, I think you guys can start, and then, or Kevin, I guess, can start, and then we'll hear from Kelsey. And I just want to, I'm sure Kevin may probably touch on this, but I just want to clarify the role of tonight's meeting. Tonight is an initial community meeting. Nothing is being approved or denied here tonight. There are many steps that we're supposed to go through with the planning commission and ultimately approved by the board of supervisors. So just want to make sure, I know sometimes we get a little confused here. Nothing is being voted on and approved or not approved in our committee. We are just an advisory committee. We're really just tonight just serving as a forum for the community to express concerns or favor or raise issues. So I encourage you to ask questions, to provide your input and feedback, but just know that we're not taking a vote tonight if we approve this or anything. We don't have that power. So just so that everyone understands exactly what we are doing tonight. This is purely sort of informational and providing the community's feedback. Tim.
Joe, so is this a public meeting in terms of what the applicant needs, or is this just a community meeting?
Nothing else. Sorry, it's a public meeting. Okay?
Yeah, it's a public community meeting. It's required before this application goes to the planning commission. So, I'll touch on that in a second. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kevin McCollum. I'm a senior planner with the Planning Division in Albemarle County Community Development. I'm here tonight to give staff's presentation and also lead the community meeting for this application, SP 2022-29, the Crozet Manufactured Home Park, as you all may know, at the Crozet Mobile Home Community. So to begin, I just wanted to give a brief overview of the community meeting. I'll start by giving staff's presentation. I'll touch on the purpose of this community meeting, give an overview of the application, discuss the different development review types, and then go into a little bit more detail about the special use permit review process. Following my presentation will be a presentation by the applicant. Kelsey Schlein is here, and she will provide any further details and specifics on the proposed project. After both of these presentations, there will be a chance for questions and comments from people in the public and the community members for staff or the applicant. So the purpose of the community meeting is pretty straightforward. It's a chance to share information about this proposed project, the development review process, and any relevant policies and regulations. It's also an opportunity to solicit public input. It's a chance to listen to any concerns and also an opportunity to answer questions. And I wanted to start by briefly introducing this project. The existing Crozet mobile home community, known as a manufactured home park in county terms, is located in Crozet just off of Park Road near the Crozet Park. So it's an existing mobile home community that's been in existence for nearly 50 years. The property itself is home to an existing 73 homes. It's nearly 15 acres in size. The existing zoning is R6 residential. Because this mobile home community has been there for so long, it actually predates our zoning ordinance and is considered what we call a non-conforming use. the use is allowed to continue, and they're allowed to replace some of the existing homes if they need repair. But if they're going to make any changes to the overall site or add additional homes to the park itself, they'll need additional approvals. So that's why we're here tonight. The Crozet Mobile Home Community has requested to add an additional 14 units to the site. So on the screen here is a snippet of the conceptual plan that was provided by the applicant. You can see some of these additional units are along Park Road, and there's some additional units near the cul-de-sac of Adele Street. When it comes to the zoning of the property, as I mentioned, it's R6 residential. So each piece of property in Albemarle County is zoned, and that zoning district determines what you can do with or on the property. So the ordinance is actually pretty specific and lists the different uses that are permitted by right and by special use permit. For example, single-family homes, townhomes, and apartments are by right uses in the R6 zoning district, whereas things such as private schools, hospitals, and manufactured home parks, the mobile home community, is permitted by a special use permit. So whereas the zoning of the property determines what can be done on the property today, the comprehensive plan is a document that makes recommendations for things such as the future land use of the property. In this case, the Crozet master plan recommends middle density residential land use for this property. There's a small piece that's neighborhood density residential, and there's green systems in the back where there's an existing stream buffer. So the comprehensive plan is a guiding document that staff uses to evaluate new uses and the expansion of uses like this Crozet mobile home community. So the differences in the use types, those by right and special uses that are identified in the zoning ordinance, are in the way they are reviewed. So quickly, just jumping back, there are certain uses permitted by right and by special use permit in each zoning district. By right uses are reviewed administratively. These types of applications are reviewed by community development staff in all of our partner agencies, and they are approvable as long as all the codes and regulations are met. For example, a single-family house on a residential lot is permitted in this R6 zoning district so long as the applicable building permits are obtained and the house is built to the building code. So if it meets all those regulations, that development has to be approved. Whereas a special use permit are reviewed by the legislative review process. So these types of developments require special permission before the development phase. These types of applications are reviewed by all the same staff, but require public hearings with the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors, who has the ultimate authority to act on the special use permit application. So manufactured homes, because they are permitted by special use permit in this district, are legislative review items. And lastly, I just wanted to mention the criteria that are used when staff's evaluating a special use permit. When reviewing one of these applications, staff determines whether the proposed use will have impacts on neighboring parcels, change the character of the area, be in harmony with the intent of the zoning ordinance, and whether it's consistent with those comprehensive plan recommendations. So after evaluating these factors, the board can actually approve certain conditions to mitigate impacts that proposed use may cause. So to conclude, just wanted to go over the timeline for this project. This project was submitted in the fall, and comments were sent to the applicant in late December. They've since requested a deferral of this application, meaning they have 6 months to work on the application to address some of the comments we have raised. And my understanding is they will resubmit. They have until June to resubmit, and once that resubmission comes in, staff's going to review what they've submitted, and we'll schedule a Planning Commission public hearing from there. After the Planning Commission public hearing, we will then schedule a Board of Supervisors meeting who, like we've said, the Board of Supervisors has the ultimate authority to act on this. I've left my staff email up here. There's also a sign-in sheet. If you'd like to send me any emails with questions or would like to stay up to date on this application, feel free to send me an email, and I'll keep you on a list for important contact information.
Just a procedural question here. So the applicant has voluntarily said, look, we're going to take into account all comments, and presumably take into account comments that they were tonight, too. They'll revise, theoretically, and resubmit, if they're allowed to do, but they don't have to have another community meeting. Is that right?
No, that's correct.
They go
As
straight
long
to-
as the changes are not substantial enough that this is the required community meeting, they have to have a community meeting before the planning commission.
Isn't that was actually the last part there was, is there a rule or regulation that says if they make X, is there a threshold that if they make, this number of changes, it actually does require a meeting? Is that?
Rebecca?
Yeah, with this type of proposal, I don't see where they would make significant enough changes that we would require a second community meeting.
Okay.
That's pretty rare, actually. I'm trying to remember one that we did have a second community meeting. This is, here, like you said, to introduce you to the proposal, but also the county process so that you know how to engage and where to find information going forward. Any revisions will be available online. The staff comments, you can always contact the staff or the applicant. And then prior to the public hearings that are required by law, there'll be the public notice sign will go up on the property, and then the immediate neighbors will receive public notice. The properties that touch the mobile home community parcel. For these community meetings, we do a broader notice, so adjoining neighborhoods were also notified, so there were more people. Other neighborhoods, within 500 feet, they got a notice.
I appreciate it. Yeah, that's just I know that's come up sometimes in our meetings, like, hey, are we going to get another community meeting? So that's actually really helpful. Thank you.
And that concludes my presentation. We can answer some more questions, but I'd like to give Kelsey an opportunity to present before we open the forum for additional questions. Do you have your?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'll plug it in. Here, on it.
Yeah.
Here,
Goodbye.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kelsey Schlein. I'm a planner with Shimp Engineering. I'm here tonight representing Crozet MHC LLC, who is the property owner and applicant for the special use permit request. Our firm, Shimp Engineering, is assisting the property owner with the special use permit request as well as with their civil engineering items for this proposed expansion. So many of you are familiar with the site, many of you live there, but just to recap, the property is on Park Road. It's just southeast of Crozet Park and adjacent to the West Hall subdivision. Just bringing up a historic image here. So this is a 1974 aerial of the site. Kevin touched on this briefly, but I wanted to retouch on the history of the property because really our special use permit application is twofold. This use was established on the property before the 1980 comprehensive rezoning of the entire county, which established much of our modern day zoning regulations in Albemarle County. And so as such, this is a non-conforming use on the property. And so as Kevin noticed, any type of expansion, modification to the property would require first establishing a conforming use on the property, which is by applying for a special use permit, and then putting forth our specific request for the expansion, which is for 14 additional mobile homes to take place on the property. So you can see the zoning in context here. The property is currently zoned R6. It's adjacent to both R4 and R6 zoned land, and so this is not a request for rezoning. It's a special use permit to establish a manufactured home park, and then also for our expansion. in the comprehensive plan. Kevin also touched on this as well, but you can see here it's designated urban density residential, neighborhood density residential, as well as parks and green systems. And so the proposed density being aligned with the R6 zoning designation falls within the urban density residential proposal. And here, this is just pretty simple concept plan, but you can see the existing conditions here, and the orange rectangles are representative of new mobile home sites. So the idea here is really to utilize as much existing infrastructure as we can, cause as minimal of disruption, disturbance as we can, and add these additional housing opportunities in portions where there's land available on the 15-acre site. So with this special use permit request, there's no proposal to modify any of the existing units, move any of the existing units. It's just looking at the land available and just adding additional units and creating some additional places for people to live in this community. That's largely what I have for you this evening. I think we'll have the most productive conversation if we can ask questions and kind of talk through things. So are you all ready to go into that?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. And I'll just remind you that Kevin, Rebecca, and Allison are here, so if there's county-focused question, I'll kick it towards them, and if there's application-specific questions, I'll take them.
I'm just curious, the areas where you're proposing to add units, were there units there at one time, or I'm just curious why there were not units there already?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, I'm just curious.
So I believe, so there has been more units in the context of the site in the past. Previously there were mobile homes here as well. If you're looking through the aerials, there might have been some additional ones on Adele Street, perhaps at one point. There have not been additional ones along the frontage of Park Road. But previously on, which at some point may have been part of this project. There's a county line adjustment done at some point, but anyway, there were additional mobile homes in the area. Yeah.
Where the majority of the orange rectangles are against, right along Park Road, there used to be a big home that was right in the middle of that, so that's probably why they weren't.
That's a great, you can see that there. Yeah, thank you for that, yes, you can see this right
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Thank you for that.
No, you're welcome. Well, you live there, so you can help us.
Is there a time to public septic there for, I mean, how's septic handled on that side?
Sure, so it's currently, all the infrastructure on site is private, but it connects to the public system. So it's connected to public water and sewer, but each individual unit does not have a meter that connects directly to the public system. If that makes sense. So private infrastructure on site, but it's ultimately a public system. There's no on-site septic or well on the property.
Sort of like apartment buildings?
Yeah, kind of. Yes, it's yeah. There's a bunch of individual connections that are private that benefit from one meter.
And all these new connections would just do the same thing, they would be plugged in the same way.
They would tie into the existing, private infrastructure, which then connects to the public system.
I have one very small question, which
Sure.
is, right on Park Road, where the 5 rectangles are, there's a wonderful tree.
Yes.
There's a big giant tree right there.
That's
Is that gonna stay?
ideally, yes, it's beautiful, and a tree like that would. I was actually just drove by it today, and I'm like, that's gorgeous. So I will say, we are required, and I think right there we are adhering to it. It's just any existing unit that can't meet this, but I believe we are 50 feet off, and that tree is kind of like right on the right of way.
Yeah.
So the idea would be to keep that for sure. And any type of entrance would be, we're looking to do an alley behind those units, so the disturbance would be further back off of Park Road, driveways directly off of Park Road, and disturbance to, allow that to happen, likely wouldn't happen, especially because that wouldn't be in favor of having all those curb cuts on Park Road to directly access those units.
Kevin, just a broader question on that. If the applicant did want to keep that tree, are there any ordinances or exemptions that require them to keep great trees in an instance where they just have a great tree?
When all of the new houses were put in, West Hall, the new subdivisions, they cut trees down all the way from 240 all the way to the trailer park. So if there wasn't anything to stop that, then I'm not sure why it was stopped from removing the tree.
So following the special use permit, they'll need a site development plan, and we have the ability to either require new street trees or, ask them to maintain existing trees, so there'd be a possibility that could remain.
Sorry, Sean.
Yeah, so I wasn't quite sure. So with the new units on Park Road, do they have immediate access, like driveways off of Park Road?
No, we're hoping to establish an alley or some type of travel way, perhaps because we have a little more room on that side coming in and maybe stepping out just to access all of these.
So the ones on the north side, how much clear cutting are you gonna have to do? I assume those trailers aren't, exact spot on, but
Yeah,
how much woods are getting cut down there?
Right, and it's also a little, and I think, Joe, your question is warranted because we have a unit shown right on top of the tree there, but sometimes with aerial imagery it gets a little distorted. And so the units that will need to be 50 feet off the property line, that tree is much closer than 50 feet to the property line. And to kind of circle back to your question, I think,
more of that.
yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, I would,
I wasn't sure on the slope towards the little creek there and trees, like,
yeah.
What's gonna remain at the end?
Sure, yeah, most of it. Yeah, there's, so if once, BS&P site plan is approved, there will be 100-foot separation off of the street. So all of those are kind of in a buffer area.
The other question, more on the county side, if this, as this moves forward, I think something I'd be interested, so I live right at the very end of Park Road in West Hall. Eventually, when Eastern Ave gets put in, you've just connected 250 to the park, which is going right by this community. Is there a way that we could see sidewalks, the developer put sidewalks in along that stretch? I'm also concerned about, 50 feet, it's not that far, and we've already had 2 cars go through the fencing along the park. So is there fencing, something additional barrier that could be put in between these people's homes and the amount of traffic that already exists and is going to only increase?
Yeah, I can touch on the sidewalk. The comprehensive plan does recommend sidewalk along that road, so our transportation staff has made that a comment to the applicant to provide a sidewalk.
Recommend, what do you mean? Does it mean recommend, or does it mean what you do, do you feel like it, or does it mean no?
It would be required along, frontage improvements, as we call them, would be required to add a sidewalk along the front of the property. I wasn't following what you were talking about as far as something running through a fence and how this.
So my concern is, on the, what's this, the southwest side, right, the house is right along Park Road, 50 feet from the road. We've already had vehicles go through the fences along, at the park, okay?
How many feet is that fence from Park Road?
Please, hold on, please. So my concern is we have homes along an extremely busy road to begin with, that's only going to become busier once Eastern Ave is connected. So what is there from a noise, light buffer between the hundreds of vehicles already going there, and that's going to increase?
So this sounds maybe like more of a general concern.
General concern,
Coming
but-
up in the context of this, because this is only the 14, this request is for 14 units, so we have to have, with special use permits, we have to have a nexus, so we can't just go and require everything we want.
Oh, I understand.
Or everything that's recommended, so I was just trying to make sure I understood.
I'm just, what other, if the county can recommend sidewalks put in, is the county able to recommend some type of a buffer for those homes that are like gonna be right 50 feet from Park Road?
So in general, it sounds like you think, there's a general concern all along Park Road about how close houses are to Park Road and where vehicles are going through, because typically 50 feet is a big setback for a development area street. Typically, like, setbacks from streets are 5 to 25 as far as the R6. And the ordinance, mobile homes have a greater setback. So that's something we can take a look at. So we've got the
I only
issue
bring
on
it
the
up
table.
because, again, at Crozet Park, there's been a couple vehicles that have already gone off of Park Road through fencing beyond, at 50 feet or more, in car accidents.
I'm
Now
just
we're-
not
now
sure
we're
what
gonna be
the
putting
park
pegs
has to do with the Crozet.
at that same distance.
Yeah, I wonder if where it was hit in this, might be unrelated to this application, but since there's kind of like a curve in Park Road right there, and, that might just be, I know the speed limit's low, which people should be going 25 right there, but I think that curve might have something to do with, what I will say, I kind of, to Rebecca's point, just about on this, the 50-foot setback is, nearly twice of what any other R6 development is required to do. So these homes will be twice what other R6, developments are typically from the street. So I think additionally just being on the straightaway there kind of helps just with visibility and just, less cause hopefully for, any sort of unsafe maneuvers.
I just think there's a safety, there's kids living in there. You're talking, I understand it's twice the distance, but you're still right by the main busy road and there's no proposed buffer, or just from a safety aspect, of kids running around.
We can, require landscaping and street trees are a requirement in the site plan ordinance, so we could also require, shrubs and bushes, that kind of thing along the road, so that could be a, natural buffer along that road.
So I don't know.
Yeah, and that's, we say we'll consider, that's something we have to consider, I guess, for the whole streetscape and what's going on. Because it wouldn't, typically, we don't see those kinds of things. When we talk about frontage improvements, we know that there are a lot of streets in Crozet that are old and don't have the sidewalks and pedestrian facilities. So as new developments come through, that happens, and then more traffic, more pedestrian-friendly streetscape starts to take shape as kind of a patchwork.
Yeah, thanks. It's for you guys. You mentioned something about an alley between the two roads. So is that something that you work with fire marshal's office on?
Yeah.
Because I think mildly self-serving is, if it's narrow and there's no turnaround, then it's one way in and one way out for us, be it fire and rescue. So it'd be nice if it either connected all the way through, or it had some way for us to have good access. Because once you pull in, it's really hard to get out, especially because I presume folks are also going to be parking their vehicles on that alleyway. So as long as the fire marshal.
We are working directly with the fire department.
Yeah, as long as they're part of that, that'll be helpful, because it doesn't show parking in that particular group of homes.
Yeah, that's one of the things. We identified a lot of those types of details that we're working with Kelsey on, and the fire marshal reviews everything. At the site plan stage, at this stage and the next stage.
Yeah, and I can have a conversation with them too.
And we work, and then, Howard, you're based on, the Crozet and the Western Alamo stations that are nearby and what y'all's needs are. If there's anything unique beyond the fire code, but those are always things that we're looking at.
Right. Yeah,
But it's good to have the first-hand experience from y'all.
Yeah, and it's easy because the rest of the community is very accessible. Because it all has a U or a circle or something, it really is easy. But if that, I could see that being narrow with on-street parking, which would narrow it if it were allowed. So there would have to be some provision for parking. But anyway, thanks, it'll be addressed.
We have about 20 more minutes allocated for this conversation, so I encourage anybody on the committee with questions, more members of the public, there's an opportunity to ask questions, express concerns, and I think everybody here would agree that they don't have to be perfectly framed, and, whether they're well versed in sort of zoning or they're just more general concerns, whatever concerns or, comments you have in favor of the proposal too. We welcome this as well. Sean, and then anyone.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have some residents here of this. I'd love to hear what you all, are you for this, or are you against this? What do you guys think?
Well, I've lived in the Crozet mobile home community since I've been born, so it's been there 40 years now. And I love being in Albemarle County. Unfortunately, Albemarle County drastically lacks affordable housing, especially in the Crozet area. It's allowed my family and now my children to be able to enjoy the, beautiful mountains and, the education that, the better education they receive in this area. And I want them to have the same, same things that I had growing up, Unfortunately, if the 14 mobile homes are not approved, what's gonna happen is the developer is then gonna come in, it's gonna buy the property, it's gonna build apartment buildings, which the majority of the Crozet mobile home community does live off of Social Security or disability. So therefore, even if we are given first option for these apartment houses, 9 out of 10 is probably not gonna be able to afford them. Yes, and it also will keep lots affordable for the current residents, because right now, with the way things are going, new developer, we just got bought out and, the rent's starting to go up little by little, so I feel like with, the 14 more units being there, it kind of does take a little bit of, the slack off of them having to get all of that money just from who's there now. And I do understand also that Misty Mountain Campground is now going to be turned into a lot of homes, as well as there is supposed to be 65 new houses due to be built in Old Trail. So I'm just kind of, wondering if 9 times out of 10 those proposals will be passed. So I just feel like if you reject the proposal for 14 additional mobile homes, then you're not really concerned about affordable housing. You're more concerned about the money and the upper class housing. And I truly hope that's not the case in this matter. Like I said, I love Crozet. I was born here, been here ever since, and have never wanted to move. I've always wanted to be here. So hopefully there's something that we can all work together to where, just as the form says it's on the table, how can Albemarle County become a place where everyone has the opportunity to thrive? Not just the people that are more well off or more, higher educated, but for actually everyone to do that. And bringing in 14 new homes will allow for some people to have more affordable housing, so.
I just wanted to clarify that Misty Mountain, Lonnie may have been getting ready to say the same, but Misty Mountain will not be a residential community. It's intended to be for tourism, camping and RVs.
Good, I was glad,
and
yes.
that was a topic of discussion as far as, it's not supposed to be permanent residence for.
Rental cabins.
Right, rental cabins, yeah, so
Rental
cabins,
cabins, gotcha.
campsites, and there are RV areas. And then Old Trail has a lot of capacity, a lot of units that they have approval for, so you're probably gonna see more than 65. With new sections coming in, there's some blocks that haven't built out yet. But yeah, so that's.
But those houses in Old Trail is not affordable for us that's on Social Security or disability.
But we definitely hear those points, but as far as Old Trail doesn't have to go back through any approvals to add more units, is just what I wanted to share with you. So that would come back as a community meeting, we're not going to go to.
And as far as, the talking about more traffic coming through that area, traffic has tripled since West Hall and the new subdivisions have been built behind the trailer park. So we have dealt with triple the traffic since the new subdivisions has come in. I really don't think that 14 additional mobile homes is going to impact it that much worse than the newer subdivisions around us.
Yeah, I appreciate the comments. I think, from my perspective, that there just having been on this committee and talked about the master plan and affordable housing, I mean, this is where it meets the road, right? We say things like, we want to make a community for all, we want housing choice, we want, diverse housing options, like, this is where it meets the road, right? And this is the kind of thing, it's not chopping down a bunch of new trees, it's not building a bunch of new roads, it's not clear cutting anything, it's an existing, place, from my perspective.
Yeah, it's infill.
Right, it's infill. This is, I mean, having sat through all these meetings, I think this is exactly what we want. I mean, like, this is the kind of thing, one of the kind of things we'd love to see more of in this community.
Are there any members of the community against the idea?
Well, I just wanna know, y'all, if you're gonna put 14 more units in here, how long are y'all planning to keep the trailer park? Because there's a lot in Virginia, they don't like to see trailer parks, so that's my biggest question, is because don't have me sitting there, wasting my time, because, like, my time with my son, like, his life is kind of intact. So I barely get to work, he's in a wheelchair, there's a lot of things that I want to do with him, and I don't need to be back and forth. My life is hard enough, and that's one thing that I really need to know. Before I can say yes or no.
I think they would be less likely to sell with the additional units there. I believe they would, obviously more have members to, fight to keep us there instead of as close, because if they don't approve it, then that's what's going to happen.
I think making this a conforming use is a good step towards keeping them there.
Yeah, I mean, I think so too. I think this makes it look like y'all gonna stay longer, but like, if y'all are just gonna be there 7 years, don't, please, just, I need to know, I don't need to know when y'all locked in,
Because I've heard, I've heard that there was a promise made to residents that they were not going to flip the property for 5 years. Yeah.
I heard 7.
I've heard that. You heard 7, I heard 5.
I've heard 5.
But are you able to answer that question?
Sure.
I didn't see it in writing anywhere myself.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to it in the capacity that I can. And that is that we are working with the owners and representing them on a special use permit for a mobile home park expansion. This is not the improvements that they will have to make to comply with certain county regulations, the special use permit process itself, this water and sewer connections, all of that is incredibly expensive.
Well,
Especially
they
the water.
paid a lot for it, which is part of my concern was like, how, they paid a lot for that, how are they making their return on investment? And 5 years isn't super comforting if I was a resident there, so.
We have to pay a water bill now, so.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to hear a
everything's
longer term
separate now.
commitment, because that price tag was steep.
Oh, yeah. So I think what I was saying, from my capacity and what I know is involved in these type of applications and the resources that are required just to submit them and take them through the process, the time that it takes, all of that, I mean, they're making a significant investment in 14 units, significant. And so, I don't see that being a short-term investment. I can't speak for ownership directly, but doing the work that I do, working on these proposals, knowing the resources involved, this is a lot for 14 units.
Is there anything in where we've heard 5 or 7 years, does anybody have that written down somewhere?
I don't honestly,
I
I think it's all
rumors.
word of
Yeah. I don't know,
mouth.
just to pass along maybe, if there's a lot of this rumor of 5 to 7 years, I know it's not relevant to the special use permit, which for the record, I totally support. I'm so glad that the house is cleaned up and there's room for more units, so, great.
And they have speaking of, I mean, I know there is work, like she said, that needs to be done. They have already, since they've brought the home, we've put up new major signage for the Crozet mobile home community. They've also added stop signs for safer traffic. So they're working on it, but I think they're kind of scared to put too much money and work into it if they're going to have to turn around and just get rid of it.
Oh, we got new mailboxes.
We have new mailboxes.
So we have about 5 more minutes, discussions up there, concerns.
This very interesting discussion begs the question of what are the uses by right on the property?
Sure, I think Kevin touched on that, but townhomes, apartments,
Well,
single family.
When you say that, what is the density that represents?
87 units.
Okay, so the alternative to this is the potential of 87 apartments or townhomes. Define that better for me, please, in terms of.
I mean, I can touch on that.
How many dwellings are there with the proposal?
So there's 73 currently, and we're proposing 14 for a
Okay,
total of
so
87.
that gets you to the 87. So are you saying that translates into 87 apartments, like an apartment building, or what are you?
Well, so they have 87 residential units affiliated with those properties. They can take shape in a multitude of forms. They can be apartments, 30 apartments with 20 townhomes. There's a multitude of opportunities. This request is for a special use permit, and it's very specific to
I
14.
understand that, but what is being referred to here is that you can have 14 of these with what exists there, or you get the grab bag over here. I'm wondering what are the uses by right in the grab bag of zoning that exists on the property today?
I think we're starting to get a little.
Well, I think
feel
Kevin can
from
answer what it is.
Yeah, I think Kevin can just explain what,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I mean, Kelsey kind of touched on it. I mean, there's a variety of things that can be done with the property. The density, the R6 zoning density permits a maximum of 6 dwelling units per acre. We don't, when we're calculating density, it's by unit, and so that unit, it doesn't matter what kind of unit that is, a mobile home, a single-family house, a townhome, or like an apartment unit, those are all units. So based on the acreage, the 15 acres, we can have up to 87 units, like Kelsey said. And it doesn't really matter what kind of unit that is, it's just 87, whichever.
Actually, and Kevin, in the master plan, this is middle density residential, which is actually 6 to 12.
Right.
So
Yeah.
theoretically, if somebody were to buy this under the master plan, they would theoretically seek an upzoning. I mean,
Yeah,
no,
they
it
would
could be rezoning.
seek a rezoning to a higher density.
To a higher density.
Which is on the land use map. So it's a valid fear, and I know it's not relevant to this special use permit. It's just, since we have a representative of the owner here, I wanted to ask what actually has been communicated to the residents, because I've heard.
No, I think that's a totally fair question. I also consider that Kelsey's situation is a very limited capacity. Her
Yeah.
agency is a very limited
There's a
authority.
potential for way more than R6 on that property, and the price that they paid for it reflected that potential, in my opinion.
6 to 12 per acre,
Sorry, Eric, did you let's maybe just one or two final
This is
comments.
more of just a comment from, first of all, thank you to the members of the community that came. I personally think, and I think others are kind of saying it in a different way, that this is an opportunity for you guys to bind together and extract some concessions that would benefit you in exchange for supporting the proposal, as you already are. I think ideas like the commitment that Ally's talking about, as well as rent control, like we do for other affordable housing units across the county, is something that a collaboration could form around. And I would say, Kevin, maybe, to have somebody within the county with this expertise work with these members to come up with such a proposal might be a win-win.
So we have the housing director is also part of the review team. But we are going to be bound, as I mentioned before, about state law and how far we can go with the special use permit request. And housing can provide them assistance, and there are some things that we have in our policy specific to mobile home communities. But we, as county staff, we have to stay in our lane of land use law in terms of what are the impacts from these 14 additional units. And of course, we'll see what we can do to help the existing residents and follow up on these questions. But I just want to make sure that we all understand the framework, and that's the purpose of this meeting as far as how far you can go with the special use permit legally. as far as what the locality can require as a special use permit condition. And that's part of what we'll do with the review process, is sort out these concerns and see what we can do, and then what we should be doing, and, you know, how it gets approved by the Board of Supervisors. But I think, like Sean keeps saying, in general, it seems like that everyone's supportive of the additional 14 units, but there are these fears and about, you know, what happens if, you know, that what could happen to the property and its potential, and so we understand that as well.
Thank you.
Lonnie, sorry, last word to you.
Yeah, just one other thing. I know that the conversation came up about street trees and sidewalks, and I was just wondering, are there things that would make your lives better, provide additional quality of life for you? You know, could we put some fruit trees there?
Please don't.
So, I mean, whatever, some things you could do there, just some landscaping or sidewalks, or what are the things that would be interested?
Yeah, I definitely think sidewalks would probably be a good idea, especially, you know, like they said, right by, you know, yeah, and that way they're not walking in other people's yards and, you know, stuff like that too, so, yeah.
On the point of sidewalks, Kelsey, there's a road over there on the right-hand boundary that terminates against the property. Has there been any consideration of tying that together with the network of roads within the park for greater connectivity across all the neighborhoods?
So since that would cause relocation of 5414, there's no like vehicular connectivity proposed, but that is a public right-of-way that then just off screen here leads to a county greenway easement that's all public. And so I think one of the comments we got back from the county was, you know, consider if there could be like a, you know, greenway easement so that we can, although we can't realize vehicular connectivity with this proposal, we might be able to realize some pedestrian connections to get people to the green space, get them to the park, and figure out how we can make that happen.
Is there currently a way to walk to the park? Through like the back?
Or is there a trail? Does it
Go
connect
up
to
the
the
trailer park and walk up the road.
But there's no way to like cut
Or,
out the back
you
somewhere?
could, cut down through behind 5428 on Claudia Street and go down and cross the little creek and go up that way.
Do people do that?
Yeah,
Yeah, there's
I've done it with my grandkids.
there's trails that go down to the Crozet Trail
It's real,
into there. There are social trails. We haven't developed a public right-of-way there, but if there were, like you said, pedestrian access by 24, whatever that is, to Summerdine over there, then you could just move right down between 507 and 515, right down to the trail right there. Yeah.
All right, well, thank you all very much for this comment. I think that's an extremely helpful conversation. So thank you all for coming out tonight. We'll proceed to our committee business. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Thanks to everyone. Really appreciate it.
Kevin and Rebecca, thank you. So we'll go, we have, go back to the agenda, we've got our committee business, we have a couple items of committee business. And actually, we're going to wrap this up hopefully pretty quickly, we'll get out of here even earlier. So one item down here under committee business, this actually ties into something that kind of came up in the conversation here. So in talking with Allison, we had a couple of kind of low-hanging fruit items that have come up in our meetings before. That's one. Hopefully I can get some help from some folks in the committee. What I'm really looking for is help, volunteers, people to spend a little bit of time and do just a little bit of legwork outside of our meetings. I promise it's not too onerous. So the two things are just making sure that our website content is up. I know we've all talked about, issues with website, whether it's broken links, missing meeting minutes, missing presentations, whatever. So I would love if somebody would be willing to spend just an hour or two poking around on the CCAC website and going through our meetings, going through the pages and looking for any documents that are missing, links that are broken. I know even something as simple like if you go to the Albemarle County website and you search like CCAC, I think one of the links is just broken. It's like, it doesn't work. It comes to like a 404 error. You have to like kind of backdoor your way into it. So Is there anybody who wants to spend just a little bit of time, poke around, and just kind of make a little spreadsheet or a list of items? Yes, thanks very much, Brad, you can work on that. And so maybe, yeah, if you could just keep a running list, Allison, would you be able to just reach out to you, or you can send it to me, and I'll pass it on to you, and then that we work on it?
No, absolutely not. But what's our website?
The what?
What is our website?
What is our website? That's a great question. I actually don't.
It's not an actual website, it's a web page on the county website. We just moved them actually, so if you go to the community development page where they used to be, they're still there, but they redirect you now.
Yeah, you can get there both ways.
So if you go to the county website, and you hover over government, and you look under the county executive list, at the bottom, the community advisory committee's link is there, and you can click on that. And then it will bring you to a general page about CACs, and then they're all linked on both the left and the right-hand sides. And those should all work. I know there was a problem with, there was some new, I don't know actually know when it was added, but I think within the last year or so, but where there was a general list of a lot of boards and commissions, and a couple of those links were broken. I think we fixed those, if they still exist, and if they do still exist and they are still broken, if you want to let me know if you find that, that's not exactly here, but I can actually just go back and double check that too. Tomorrow to see if those are.
Actually, after the last meeting that I was here, and I don't know, somebody brought up, like, if you search up CCAC, it goes to some random place. If you go to, and I think I fixed it, if you go to the homepage and go to the search, type in CCAC, the first response is the CCAC page.
Okay.
I was just going to point out that the crozetcommunity.org website posts both the agenda and the minutes as they come out every month, so it's also there, and that's easy to find.
Thank you.
It's the top thing on our page right now. It won't be tomorrow because the CCA meeting is tomorrow, so that'll become the top thing on the page.
Thank you very much, and thank you for doing that. Yeah, it's just, we just want to, now that we have terrific liaison support, we're just kind of long-hanging through, make sure that our website is up to date with all the information. And going forward, another thing that Allison and I talked about is maybe even a little bit more functionality with the kind of meeting pages, including some more materials, things like presentations. We haven't always been very consistent or diligent about getting those materials out ahead of time. I think I'm going to try to work with Allison and make sure that if there are presentations, then we share them ahead of time, and we can store them on each web page for each meeting, so it's like a nice archive.
And if we can't get them ahead of time, we'll definitely get them after. Like I just Kevin to get it, so
yes,
that will be up as soon as possible. So.
Yeah, it's going to be a really nice archive going forward of all our materials. I know that'll make Nicholas' life easier too. Now that we don't have the recordings to go back to on YouTube. So thank you, Mallory. The other thing I would like to do is, and this is an idea that Allison mentioned, that some of the CACs kind of keep tabs on development projects, right? Because the question that I asked to Kevin before, like, so sometimes we see these community meetings, right? We'll have a community meeting, the project goes on, maybe there's a review, maybe there's comments or changes, but then it doesn't come back to us. And it just kind of drifts around, and we're always left to wonder, like, hey, whatever happened to that? Whether it's, Montclair or whatever, it's like, hey, didn't we hear from him like 2 years ago? Or Old Dominion, or whatever. What's going on with that? Like, where is that? And it just kind of floats around. And so some of the CACs are a little more deliberate in sort of monitoring those and sort of keeping up with those. And I think we might be able to do some of that work. And, again, it would take a little bit of legwork on our behalf, but not a whole lot. Just kind of keeping tabs on where things are. And then that could be one of the items under like number 3, announcements updates. If somebody says, hey, I've been keeping tabs on what's going on with Old Dominion. By the way, it's going back to the planning commission this month, whatever. Just to give an update, I think that would be really helpful. And again, like sort of Valerie's point about like accountability, follow through, like just staying on top of things. Like, where is that? What's going on with that? I think that is a helpful thing to do. So what I would ask is if there's somebody who would be willing, at this stage it's very minimal, just to go back through, say, I guess probably since like 2020, to look at like our meeting minutes and just make a list of like all the projects, all the community meetings that we had. Just say, hey, we heard these 7 or 8 projects over the past 3 years, maybe even 2019, I don't know how far back. I doubt there's anything that's still floating around from 2019 that's not come forward, but What's that?
It's possible.
It's fine, yeah, so yeah, let's take 2019. If there's somebody to be willing to just go back to the minutes and just make a list. That's all I need is just a list of like, here's the master list of the last 4 years of community meetings we've had. I don't think we have like a handy list of that. I don't want to shame anybody right here. You can email me later. All right. I'm just going to start emailing people later. All right. But I'm gonna bug people about that. I think Allison, you mentioned that there are some CACs that actually take that list that we come up with and like divvy it up, right? And they say like, hey, I am the Montclair person. Like my job is like before every meeting to go and double check and see what's going on Montclair. I'm the old committee person. I'm the mobile home community person, right? So maybe we'll get to that. I don't know. It's something we can talk about, but we just need a list is the first thing. So that's all I need is just a list. So Joe, let's get started. Thanks, Mike. I'll pull that together. Thank you. Yeah, just literally just a list, and then we can see what we're going to do.
Make sure that tree doesn't get cut.
Well, that's right. I mean, like, I think, yeah, just follow through, just saying, like, hey, this came up, where are we with that, or what's going on? I think that's just a valuable thing. And also, I think this is helpful for members of the community, too, right, who come to, a lot of people come to one meeting, we talk about it, and then it just disappears, right? We don't ever hear about it again until you see it, bulldozers. Okay. Okay, look, we got, like, 6 minutes, I promise. We'll adjourn at 8:25. We're not even going to go 8:30 tonight. We'll be done by 8:25. 7 minutes. I just want to revisit our discussion about virtual meeting practices. I know last time, so just to refresh everybody's memory, what we did at our last meeting is we adopted a virtual meeting policy, which is required by state law. If we want to have meetings, we have to do it pursuant to a policy. We have now done that. All that policy says is, if we are going to have a virtual meeting, here's what you have to do. But it doesn't actually tell us, A, if we have to have any meetings, or B, how we decide that. Or if we have any at all. It says, if we decide to do it, here's how we do it. So what I wanted to just have a conversation with everybody here is, do we actually want to use that power? How might we use it? When might we use it? How might we go about deciding that? Right? I don't feel comfortable as the chair just saying, hey, by the way, next month's meeting is virtual, especially since I know not everybody enjoys virtual meetings. I know there's different opinion. 6 minutes of general conversation.
With the quarterly things that you mentioned earlier, the topics rotations, is that something that we, like, are we going to once a quarter at the end of the meeting sit here and kind of plan that out? Because that seems like a good opportunity to say, hey, this meeting in this quarter could be a good group.
So the only restrictions on our ability to meet virtually are we can't do it back to back. So theoretically, okay, we meet 12 or 11 times historically. We met about 11 times a year. So we get 3 virtual meetings, up to 3 virtual meetings that we could use per year under state law, per calendar. They just can't be back to back. And then we do have to notice if we do the meeting, but that's something that
Maybe like for an emergency, like if there's a bad snowstorm, you can't say, oh, just kidding, tomorrow we want to have this meeting virtually. You have to still give them 3 days notice.
But it's just 3 days, right? Yeah, we could decide that.
Yeah, so you can
late
decide
in the day,
like a little bit in advance. I've heard a couple of different things. One, a couple people have expressed interest in when there is a big community meeting, potentially doing it virtual, so you can allow more people to attend. And then the other thing that we kind of talked about a little bit internally is if you have enough meetings to get up to the 3, which it's what is it, 2 meetings or 25% of your total meetings. So if you end up having to cancel a significant amount of meetings, you can only be able to do 2 then, but potentially doing like 1 in the winter time, 1 in the summertime, and keeping 1 just for that potential community meeting, potential something's going on that you all want to stay at home, whatever the situation could be.
Well,
So.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Cost us a shot.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, shot.
No, I mean, it's funny because when I was thinking actually the opposite. I feel like if there's a community meeting, I like the in-person for that. I know it's a little burdensome of people coming to it, but I think the interaction is much better in person for a community meeting versus, let's say we're just hearing from, the Water Commission, which is always riveting. We could do it from home, maybe. I don't know,
I went to a bill at the Ryan Van Award.
Yeah, I've heard that aspect too. I can't even want to see.
Sorry, cost this to the outdated.
Yeah, isn't there didn't something come up with what people are allowed to do with chat? When it's
Yeah, you can't
virtual,
chat at all.
right,
It's
it's very
disabled.
restricted.
Yeah.
Correct.
You can't chat, so.
I can't just chime in whenever I want.
Yeah, so one concern that I would have, I echo with Sean, if there's a public meeting, we want people to give input.
Yeah.
And if it's virtual, then there's no chat, there is no input.
Yeah.
And so I would kind of.
They would make public comments though, right? They can
They
raise their
have
hand.
to.
Well, they have to be,
Raise their
yeah, they
hand.
have to be admitted to the meeting, correct, yeah, with, Carolyn in the
It's
midst
so
of the meeting, or
clunky.
Ally,
It's
please.
so
Yeah,
funky.
no.
I just will reiterate that I would prefer to meet in person every time, so if we're gonna have a, if it's helpful to go around and just get a temperature of the committee, that might be interesting, because if I'm the only one that wants to meet every time in person, I'll shut up and talk.
No, I'm the same.
Many of us look at a computer all day at work, so.
I'm so relieved that we're
Not
back in
looking at
person. I
computers
already
and-
feel like more invigorated by everything than I did the whole year everything we were on Zoom, so.
So,
Forgive me, I was not able to be at the meeting when you all talked about this, I guess 2 months ago. My understanding is a hybrid option is not an option,
Not an
correct?
option.
Because I was going to say, if it were, it'd be nice to have our committee here in person and any members of the public who want. But I'm just cognizant that some people are not able to, whether it's child commitments or whatever, able to be here in person.
yeah,
Ideal to be able to accommodate them, but I recognize that.
yeah,
That's
we
challenges.
were vociferous in
Yeah.
begging Ann for that. It's ultimately, it's a staffing issue. I mean, there are some infrastructure concerns. I don't think that would be really an issue here. I think we could make people probably work here. It's more of a staffing thing.
Could we take a quick straw poll of the committee and just say how many people would be in favor of trying to meet in person most of the time when we can?
I think we have to.
Well, we have to meet at least 9 times.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
but let's say, how many people were in favor of it being basically always in person? How about that?
Yeah, I think it's-
Do you want to just do a quick poll among ourselves?
Yeah, everybody who wants it to always be in person, raise your hand.
Yeah, I love it in person, I think it's much better, more, it's just that clearly.
Yeah.
But, COVID sucks, and it's spiking, and we're masking, and people are dying, and, we're still in a pandemic, I mean, it's not a secret that people are dying with every day. Yeah, I mean, I'm not, I'm sort of an outlier in this regard, but, I'd love the option to be at home, not getting exposed to all y'all.
Well, I think, I mean, Sean's is an interesting point. I mean, I think there may be, I'm kind of like, and I think I've probably been swayed on this. I think I buy in, actually, to your point about the community meeting. I think I used to think that the community meetings virtually were good because more people can attend, and I still think that's partly true, but the feedback aspect is really critical. I think tonight showed exactly like, yeah, it's really important. And so I think for public meetings, I've actually probably come around to that perspective, that for large community meetings, it is probably better to be in person. So maybe, but I do wonder if there are some instances where we might, whether it truly is, hey, it's December and half of us are going to be traveling. I mean, the answer maybe is we just cancel it. We say, well, that's stupid, we're not gonna have it. Or maybe it's June, and you're like, 3 of the people are gonna be out. It's like, oh, but I'm gonna be home. Like, I'll just stay home, my kids. Like, I'd rather do that, just like chime in, because we don't have light. Or maybe it's the water. I'll tell you the one reason it's the water. That was it. Jamie and Mark, fantastic. I look forward to that presentation every year, and I tell them because it's amazing. They're the only people looking out 75 years down the road.
You know it's being recorded, right?
I do. I hope it is. They're true. No, I'll just end on this point, and no, I'll just end with this one, and I'll do it quickly. But I do wonder if there might be, like, for example, just this week, there was a conversation on Nextdoor. People were like, hey, what's going on with the plaza? And it was nice to be able to send them the YouTube video, like, hey, by the way, we just heard from DCI. They presented at our August meeting. Go watch the video. And like, yes, I know that the Gazette's here, but it can sometimes be hard, it's something a little hard to hear.
I might screw up at any point. I mean.
Yeah, but I think in some respects, like the video's right there, there's a presentation that's really easy, so I wonder if there may be opportunities if we have just a purely more informational presentation that people might be interested in, or we know it's something that would have wide community interest, but it's not really an input thing, like the DCI or something else, right? Where we know that people are gonna wanna watch it, maybe that might be an opportunity. Say, hey, it's August, a lot of out of town, but it's DCI, people wanna see it, maybe that's, I don't know, that might be an opportunity. And then that way it just makes it easier to share our archive or whatever. Mallory, sorry.
Yeah, my opinion on it is, I'm all for majority of meetings being in person, but I think having 2 to 3 meetings a year virtually is a great tool, particularly because there are months of the year that people are just busy, December, June. And it would be nice to continue having meetings. Like, it feels like it's been a very long time since our November meeting.
Yeah.
And so having a virtual option last month would have been really nice. And maybe 3's too much, but I kind of like Allison's idea too of like, we have one floater based on kind of community needs too, because more people do show up and have access to the virtual forum.
I mean,
Ish.
maybe.
Maybe.
This was a really pretty good crowd. I mean, I don't think we got that many people virtually.
It also gives staff a chance to come and visit Crozet.
Well, and staff gets a chance to directly interact with the residents, that doesn't happen on Zoom. Like, you know, for me, I got to like, make sure they wrote their names down and stuff, and that doesn't happen on Zoom.
Okay, well, great. I wasn't looking to solve this tonight, but actually I do think we had, like, I wouldn't say consensus, but I think it's nice that we're getting some good views, and it sounds like the vast majority of people say, look, for like community meetings, like, need to be in person, that there's a value to that. There might be some opportunities, whether it's calendar-based or topic-based, where we say, actually, it makes sense to have next month as a virtual or something as an option. But we'll continue that. I think that makes sense to get a conversation. Any final items before we adjourn? Tim?
Final item is, tomorrow night is the Crozet Community Association meeting at the Crozet Park Building, Community Building. There's going to be a presentation on the 3-notch trail proposal, and their raise grant, David Scott, and the Crozet Trails crew will be there as well to participate in that. So hope people will come.
Great. Dr. Ocean, any final items from the committee? With that, I believe we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.